So just kind of want to talk about lockdowns, the effect on wider society too. That it's not covered a lot in the media, but again, the media will cover it in this country. But again, I want to just say straight to people that the effects of the lockdown, effects of COVID, have been much less. Like the coronavirus itself has been much less than the effects on wider society. Because again, wider society, everything else really apart from COVID. Like for example, hospital appointments, nearly 1 million hospital appointments. That's just for example. Some of them are very critical. And some severe tests. Cancer treatments, cancer patients. As many doctors say, they don't get. A lot of them basically have no chance of surviving now. If they get a late screen of a late diagnose, because it's gone too far the cancer, and obviously they couldn't treat because obviously lockdowns and services weren't running and for a long time, that's something that we have to weigh the balance too, because there's an awful lot of people, I suppose, in the moment of time in this country that have smear tests, cervical check tests, cancers and things like that. And God knows how many women and how many men are just sentenced to death, because of you not being for example the cervical check. God knows how many women's been sent to the deaths and how many men have been sent to their deaths because the HSE had the services closed. And again, that probably overweighs the 4,000 mark. 4,000 cases of deaths in Ireland related to COVID. But that probably overweighs. That's probably nearly, I say at this moment in time, it's probably more 7,000, 6,000 maybe, of people who wasn't diagnosed with cancer, people who had heart attacks, heart failure, because again, you can't go into your doctor, you can't go into GP if you have something wrong with you. I know a man that has a problem with his chest, has breathing trouble, and he couldn't go into his doctor. He had to describe over the phone what was wrong with him. And again, how is the doctor really supposed to know unless you're there in person? How is again describing something a doctor may or may not know? But again, you don't know how bad the patient is until they go in. And again, that's the thing about the doctors. Even when I had something wrong with my ear, the doctor didn't know if I rang him on the phone and said, my ear's blocked. He wouldn't know how bad it is until I went in and he seen himself. So obviously that, and then obviously funerals. Obviously not being able to say goodbye to the loved one is something that's tragic. It's absolutely tragic, and it's something that again, you can't have again. You can't have another funeral. You can only have it once again. Because again, you can only say one goodbye, and it's difficult. Again, even some things like again, I just want to say, there was a man in the country taken off a bus, because he was going to a graveyard in Cork. Now I obviously don't have to say how much of the disgrace that is for anybody being taken out of a bus, for example, and even asked by the guards where they're going, if they're going to a graveyard, to the father's grave, and it's an absolute disgrace that happened. And I think my whole man should be ashamed of himself, for allowing this to happen, for him to even be asked and taken off the bus, to go to his father. Like it's beyond disgusting that this thuggish behaviour by some guards. Because again, what harm would they do in going to a graveyard? Like at the end of the day, what harm would they do? And the same with the churches and things like funerals and things like there's only 10 allowed. And this is the thing. The house of God is the most safest place to be. And that's just putting it straight. No house is safer. Being in the shop with God, God protecting you, Jesus protecting you. There's no other safer place in the world. And, obviously the government take otherwise with that. But again, if you weigh them two, just for example, them two hospital appointments, nearly 1 million, for example, cancer, you weigh that and you weigh the amount of people who have been late diagnosed with cancer and, God forbid, whatever else, the numbers are probably just over and beyond. It's just probably just gone altogether, the numbers. And God bless the souls. That's all I say. God bless us for the mistakes we have made. Because a lot of people are suffering at the moment because they can't get their treatment. Same with funerals. A lot of families have to grieve and they don't have the grieving process. The right grieving process. Same with weddings and things like that. It's difficult. It is very hard for people not having the community around them. And obviously the effects of mental health. Physical health too, as I mentioned, the physical health. But particularly mental health, because this country already had a mental health crisis before going into this. And I talked about many times before, the CAMS, for example, HSE funded. Now I just want to say, but Hate a House and So Sad. But I want to commend them for their outstanding work, because obviously they're the only group who are really, really helping young people and who are really helping each other, because CAMs, at the end of the day, they don't work half the time, not even working half now. Like CAMs in Cavan, for example, HSC funded, just I don't know what they're doing. I might be honest, I really don't know what they're doing because they're not even open. So that just tells you so sad is working over and beyond their work, and they're a voluntary group. So just what they take them for the work they're doing for young people. But again, this is the thing. If you overweight, especially suicides, for example, there's been a lot of suicide in Cavan alone by young people in this county. It's an absolute tragedy. Because again, I know how I was in that position a few years ago. You know, I felt like life was nothing to me, and you know, you put yourself in that shoes and you remember how you feel. Again, you really, and I understand, and I really do understand. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for the families. Devastating for the communities, and people still I still haven't come to terms with it. And it's happening all across this island. It's not been talked about. And there's no records being kept. They're not keeping records of the suicides or anything like that, how many people committed suicide. But again, you weigh that, and then you weigh the people waiting for mental health appointments. Some of them are waiting 6 months, 7 months for mental health appointments. Excuse me. And you know, you weigh that, again, you weigh all these things together, and then you weigh businesses going out of business and not being able to put food on the table and to pay the staff and things like that, and ended up with debt. You know, again, you weigh all this at the end of the day. You know, again, then education too, lack of young people missing out on no education, and people with special needs, for example, children with special needs who need routine, need their education, need social interaction. They've been let down. Nomophobia has let them down. But I'm sure people would agree. If you weigh that in one hand, like by far what I just mentioned there, that you overrules like the first one alone, the hospital appointments for different things. Some might be not serious, some might be in the middle, and some might be very, very serious. Like for example, so say my father, during the summertime, he had to go up to Beaumont. He had an artery or vein swell up and basically kind of go like a bubble, I suppose. And it was on a vein, and now the lockdown happened after that. But it's a miracle, and I will say this, it's a miracle he survived. Because if that busted, there would have been nothing that could have saved him. So was that there would have been nothing that could have saved him. Because we would have bled to death, and there would have been nothing that could have been done. Even if he was in the hospital, there would have been nothing that could have been done, because he would have lost too much blood very quickly, and there'd be very little anybody could do. But thanks be to God, you know, he got his appointment. Thanks be to God, he got his appointment, and I have to thank the doctors, the 2 doctors in particular, that basically pushed, and they pushed very seriously. Because again, he would have died. He wouldn't have been alive now if he had to wait this long. He would have been dead probably in 2 months. Like as the doctor said, and as he said to me, this is just an example. If he had to live another month, like say if it was left another month, or he didn't get an appointment for another month, he would have died. So, but it would have been no point, because he needed that operation so he had to wait 2 months. Like he was lucky to survive 2 months waiting for an operation, but he was sent up for an operation obviously when the lockdown things like that happened. And he was lucky to get it. Thanks to God he got it. And obviously it was a very big operation, 9 hours of an operation. And that's how serious it was, and had to open his stomach and everything. It was a huge thing. And obviously there was a very big chance he could have died, especially with his age and everything. But thankfully he pulled through. He's a strong man, the same as myself. But again, you weigh that, and you know, again, he was very scared. He's not a man to be scared, and I might be honest, he went through hardship in his life. You know, we've seen a lot of stuff when he was younger, and you know, things that affect him throughout his whole life. But again, as he said to me, that was the one time he was very scared, because he didn't want to die alone. He didn't want to, like, he lives on his own. I ring him every day and I talk to him every day to see how he's doing. But he didn't want to die alone. He didn't want to die like that in pain, because he would have had to. But he would have probably bled to death for a long time before he would have died, and you know, he wouldn't have been able to move or anything like that. Even thinking about that, you know, makes me very sad. But it takes to God. He got his operation. Thanks to God he did. And I tell you, the only person I have to thank is God for that. Because it's a miracle. It is really, really a miracle that he was able to get the operation. So, and I obviously have to thank them 2 doctors, and then Lola myself, because they were talking to me about it. No, they went through boundaries. They went over the boundaries to make sure he got his operation, and only for them, and I tell you straight, and only for God, he wouldn't be here. And that's it. That's 1 out of 1,000,000 cases in this country at the moment. That's very serious. Like, for example, probably people who need heart surgery done, different things, kidneys and things like that. And that's just 1 out of 1,000,000 cases at the moment. And look, it was a good outcome, and he's doing well and he's recovering well. But that's just an example. Because again, with the lockdown, he probably would have got it straight away because it was an emergency. It was deemed a very big emergency because it could have busted at any time. There was no telling when it could bust. But again, you weigh that. That's just a personal thing there. But again, that's just showing you, because again, at that time I didn't. I might be honest, I didn't know. Excuse me. But if you weigh that on one hand and you weigh the lockdowns on the other hand, it doesn't really justify the lockdowns. I might be honest with you. And I understand people might say 4,000 people lost their lives, and I understand that. But you add everything else here, and there's more human suffering, human cost, and I don't mean to make litter of COVID or anything like that, but there's more human suffering here. In what I read out, like people not having hospital appointments, the numbers, if you add all that together, suicides, people people not having their treatment done, you weigh all that together, and you have a very big death total, and I might be honest with you, that's very grim to say, but it's probably more than COVID, and I might be honest with you. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, and prove me, I suppose, again, people have their own opinion. But as I say, the lockdowns, because again, if you have a lockdown today, take for example, and you say we're going to flatten the curve for 2 weeks, even though you have a lockdown for 2 weeks, the curve's never going to be flattened, because there's always going to be another surge, there's always going to be virus, there's always going to come up again. So at the end of the day, it's really, really pointless having any kind of lockdown, because it just comes back, and you have 2 or 3 weeks of free time, and it just comes back. It's same as Christmas. We only had a few weeks, and then they could shut us down again and everything. And they didn't even give us a chance to the New Year. They shut us down straight away. But again, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Subscribe more and take care, and bye.